Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome, everyone, to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. There's a lot of different philosophical ways that the Kundalini energy is described. What's important for us, though, and particularly I think for you as you were speaking about having that energy rise in you from childhood and yet reading so much and being told so much about it's bad, it's not right, be careful of it. It's dangerous. What you have to realize is all of that within us is actually working toward our awakening. All of that which is natural within us is all in alignment together for our awakening. The only part of us that is not in alignment with that is the part that isn't naturally us, the part that has been indoctrinated by the culture, by the society, our subconscious minds that tell us, oh, it's all about buying something, owning something, right? Because this is what we've been indoctrinated to believe. Children, little kids who have not yet seen TV commercials and, haven't yet been exposed to advertising and marketing. They don't walk down the street or go down the street in mom's arms going, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. They're in mom's arms. That is enough. They are good. It's only once the commercials start coming in, the marketing starts coming in, they go to school and the friends are, I've got this, your truck is old, my truck is new, and I'm better than you are. And then they start. But other than that which we experience in this lifetime and leaves these impressions, these sanskaras, that give us that sometimes false sense of the self, that ego sense of the self. Other than that which is naturally within us is aligning for our awakening. That's why we've taken the human birth. That energy is an energy that's part of awakening. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody who has an awakening experience has got also an experience of Kundalini energy. It may happen without them noticing. For some people, it's very strong and very specific and distinct. For other people, it's just a very, very beautiful flow of warm energy. Electricity, the same electricity, comes to us in one way via this light bulb that's really bright in my eyes versus through this camera in front of me versus through the microphone versus through a fan. It's the same electricity. But because the vehicles through which it's coming are different, the expression is going to be different. And even if it's all electricity as light, nonetheless, based on the different light bulb, that light is going to be experienced differently. So there's no right or wrong way to experience it. It definitely isn't dangerous. What's dangerous is when the ego says, no, 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 wait, I am in charge here. And so that energy is dangerous to the ego. And then the ego says in your mind, oh, this is very dangerous energy, you better stop meditating. Because the ego wants to stay in charge. And suddenly, if I have a deep experience that comes in energy, well, I realize the ego for what it is. Which is a formerly useful, now slightly disruptive presence in my life. As useful as I was growing up, this was a child. Now I'm disruptive to the extent that I let it be in charge. But the awakening of our spirituality is a threat to that ego. So the energy itself is definitely not dangerous. Nothing to worry about. It's the energy of the body. There's so many energies of the body that come to us in so many different ways. So whatever your experience was with it, or has been with it, again, sometimes it's very, very powerful. And sometimes it's just sweet. And it's all good, it's all right. But yeah, it can sometimes be something that takes you back. I remember the first time when I was aware of having that experience in that very, very physical way. I had been in India for about maybe a month. And there was a group of people who had come in from America and who had wanted to learn Reiki. And so they had asked Puja Swamiji to organize for a Reiki master to come in to teach Reiki. And I was hanging out with this group because they were the first group of English-speaking people I had met since I had come. And so they said, oh, you should come. We're having this Reiki master in the evening. I had never heard of Reiki. I had no idea what it was. But nonetheless, everything was an adventure and I didn't have anything else to do, so I went. So the Reiki master was giving everyone a level 1 Reiki initiation. And I missed the introduction to it because I was doing some seva. So I get in and there were a couple of chairs and the Reiki master had a couple of assistants, and he was just as I walked in saying, we will now be giving you all the level 1 initiation. It only lasts a few minutes. You won't feel us physically touch you. So the person who had invited me to join said, would you like to go first? I know you've got other seva you have to get back to. I said, sure. So I sit in the chair and 2-3 minutes, the Reiki master tells me to close my eyes. 2-3 minutes pass. And he didn't touch me. And after 2-3 minutes, he says, so I was only planning to give the level 1 initiation, but your chakras are so open that I can give you the level 2 initiation as well if you would like it. Now remember, those of you who know at least some piece of my story, I was 25, I was a psychology student, I had no background in spirituality whatsoever. I had no idea what a chakra was. I had never heard the word before. But I was in the midst of this extraordinary spiritual adventure, and so why not? I mean, the first one had only taken 2 or 3 minutes. I hadn't felt anything. Sure. So I say, sure. The next thing I knew, I heard his words kind of, and I literally felt them sort of come from outside kind of into my ear and sort of nestle itself in my brain before I understood that I was supposed to stand up from the chair, that I was done. So I walk out of the room, and Pujya Swamiji was sitting in his garden. He didn't have the beautiful hut yet built at that time. He was sitting on the grass in his garden, giving darshan. Maybe there were 15, 20 people sitting there in front of him. He was speaking with them, maybe more. And I walked into his garden, and it was evening time. It was dark. And I sat at the very back of the group. So I was maybe 20 feet away from him, and I bowed down and just sat there. And as I'm sitting in the grass, it suddenly felt like I had sat on top of a geyser that I had seen at Yellowstone National Park, where the water just out of the, right? Yellowstone has it, Geneva has it, I don't know where else in the world they have it, but there are these places where they've got this natural sort of exploding water, minerals out of the earth, sort of like a volcano, but it's water rather than lava. So it literally felt to me like I had sat on top of one of those geysers. And it hit the top, like I felt it go all the way through me and hit the top of my head from the inside, and then swoosh around inside of me. And it then receded back into the earth. And Pujya Swamiji is still speaking to the group, and finally they bow to leave, and so I also bow, and they stand and I stand, and I was about to follow them out of the garden, and Pujya Swamiji caught my eye, and he motions for me to stay back. And he motions for me to follow him inside, and he opens the door to a room that I had never been in yet. I had only been there a month. And it's this storeroom. And there's books on the shelves and gifts that he'd been given that were about to be re-given to other people, sort of the gift recycling area, and books and whatnot. And a carpet like this on the ground. And he says, lie down. So I lie down on the ground, and he shuts off the light. And he closes the door and locks it behind him, like he's on the outside of the door, not the inside. He locks me inside the storeroom and walks off. And I lay on the carpet in that storeroom and felt the entire energy of the being just expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding, to the point where I was wondering how I was going to explain to him that I had knocked down the walls of this storeroom where he had so lovingly given me a place to lie down. But the energy of my being was so much, it was going to destroy, just bring down the walls and expand beyond it. And at some point, I have no idea how much time passed, he came back in and turned on the light and said, "How are you?" And I have no idea what I said, but whatever it was did not convince him that I was ready to be unlocked out of the room yet. And so he turned the light back off, closed the door, locked it again, and I again went and was everything and everywhere simultaneously. And again, I have no idea how much time passed, but eventually I came back and started to have a very clear experience of being in a dark room, lying on the floor. I could feel the carpet beneath me. And a few moments later, the door opened again, and it wasn't Puja Swamiji, it was actually our cook, who says, "Puja Swamiji say you eat food." And he reached down and helped me up and brought me into the kitchen and fed me a big bowl of khichdi. But I share the experience because that, in those days, that was what the energy felt like. And to me, what's so extraordinarily beautiful is that my guru, from 30 feet away in the dark, could look at me and know that girl needs to be locked up in a storeroom for a few hours in the dark. That he knew. He didn't know I had gone to the Reiki thing. I mean, he had no idea anything that was happening. But he knew from looking at me, this girl needs to just be locked up in a safe place for a few hours. But as time has gone by, the energy has taken a much sweeter quality to it. So I no longer find myself needing to be locked up someplace. I no longer have this sense that I'm going to burn through my bed or bring down the walls. But it's become much more of just a very sweet presence. And so I've experienced in my own life how that energy shifts. And again, I don't think anything is better or worse or wrong or right. Who knows? If I get a funny look in my eye, lock me up in a storeroom. But what I know is it's all good. And that the energy of awakening is all in alignment with what's right for us to awaken. And so if you haven't had an experience like that, don't worry. It's one of the reasons that I tend to not share personal experiences so much, is I don't want people to think, oh, it hasn't happened to me like that, therefore my experience is somehow less, or I'm not good enough, or I should try harder and then I'll have that type of experience. In fact, I always say, people talk about the touch of God. And for me, he really had to hit me over the head with a baseball bat to get me to pay attention. And so perhaps the dramatic nature of the experiences was because I didn't feel the touch, I didn't notice the touch, I didn't pay attention to the touch, and he literally had to come in and whack me over the head to get me to pay attention, and hence it was dramatic. But however your experience of the energy within you has been, it's all right. It's all exactly what you need. And it takes you to exactly the right place, as long as you can trust it. Never worry. Never worry. People don't actually go crazy from spiritual awakenings. That's a myth. Doesn't mean that we don't have moments of being in ecstasy. My favorite example of this, going back to Paramahansa Ramakrishna, because it's his birthday, is the story of how his disciples used to ask him to describe the different chakras of the body. And he would describe them one by one, beginning low and working up, and describe different experiences of each of them. And as he would get up to the heart, he would just enter samadhi, just be in a total trance, and his disciples would just be left waiting for hours for him to come out of the trance. And then again he would start, okay, so it's like this. And again he would get close to the heart, and he would just enter samadhi. And finally after this happening so many times in a row, he looks at his disciples with tears in his eyes, and he says, I want to tell you, but the mother just won't let me. And so, yeah, sometimes things like that happen, not necessarily the most coherent all the time. But you don't go crazy. Misconception. Anybody who has gone crazy and blamed a spiritual awakening is just misinterpreting, misexplaining. I mean, whether they're consciously doing it or unconsciously doing it, either way, the energy's all good. And as long as we can get our egos out of the way, so the two don't go crash into each other.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Alaya, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. Spirituality can never not exist. We can become as material a species as we want. We can become as misguided, misdirected a species as we want. It's up to us. God's given us free will. You want to spend your life focused only on how much you earn and buy? No problem. But that doesn't make spirituality stop existing. It just means that you are not benefiting from it. That's like saying, can the sun still exist if I lock myself in my room and close my curtains? Of course. Doesn't impact the sun that you're sitting in your room with your curtains closed. It impacts you only. And so, spirituality is not a belief system. Spirituality simply means, literally, if you look it up in the dictionary, all it means is pertaining to spirit, of the spirit. And so all spirituality means is, I've chosen to focus on spirit. Now, we have two options of how to focus our lives. We can focus on the matter, the material world, or we can focus on spirituality. Now, that's up to me, each of us individually. But if I focus only on spirit, It doesn't make my body disappear. My body doesn't say, oh, no one's paying attention to me, I guess I'll just dissolve. It's still there. I'm just focused on spirit. Similarly, if you focus only on the material world, spirit doesn't say, oh, well, I guess nobody wants a spirit anymore. Okay, forget it. The spirit is always there. The spirit, the soul, the essence, consciousness. This is the truth of what exists, of what is. That's the core truth. If you want to focus on it or not, entirely up to you. But it always exists. Now, so it's not about in our world. Can spirituality exist in our world with materialism? The real question is in my own mind. Because our world is made up of individuals. It's not that one day the wind blows in a more material sort of way and one day the wind blows in a spiritual way. It's not like when it rains you get wet, when it doesn't rain you don't get wet. It's not in the weather. It's in every single one of our individual choices. How are you going to focus? Are you going to focus on this physical body? How much I can make, how much I can get? What for me? Or are you going to focus on the spirit? Now, just because we focus on spirit doesn't mean that we don't do our jobs in the world. It doesn't mean that we have to renounce the world. It doesn't mean that we can't enjoy a holiday on the beach or in the mountains or a nice cup of tea or our families. Or people say sometimes, oh, if I'm going to be spiritual, does that mean I have to, give up everything? No. This world, this divine creation, the leaves on this beautiful vine behind us, the trees, this is sacred. And so there's no teaching in spirituality that says, thou shalt not enjoy the world. Thou shalt always be miserable. Thou shalt never smile. Of course not. God has created the creation. Of course we're supposed to enjoy it. Why would a sunset be so beautiful? Or a rainbow be so beautiful? Or the sound of a bird be so beautiful? If we weren't supposed to enjoy it? Why would a baby's face be so beautiful if we weren't supposed to love it? The dilemma comes when instead of taking joy and connection and fulfillment from that which exists in abundance in this natural world, when I start to believe that my joy is going to come from something that I'm going to manufacture, a title, a degree, a name on a door, prestige, fat bank account, power over a lot of people, whatever it may be. But when we start thinking that it's going to come from that, the dilemma comes, it obviously doesn't come from that, ever. And if you doubt that, conduct a scientific study of lots of rich people. I actually did this. After I had been in India for about a year and a half or so, I was back in California visiting my family, and I had already noticed on a very, very deep level, as well as in my intellectual mind, on every level of me, I had noticed that there was a secret here. There was a secret about life, a secret about joy. That these kids on the street who didn't have shoes were happier than the kids I grew up with who had everything. That there was a secret. That the women walking through the mountains carrying firewood on their heads were happier than the mothers of friends of mine growing up with fancy homes and fancy cars. And so I already knew there was a secret here, but I'm a scientist at heart. And so I thought, let's do a study. And when I was back in California, I reached out to about 10 different people I knew, all of whom were at the absolute height of success in their different fields. So one of them was the CEO of a Fortune 500 billion dollar company. One was a tenured professor at Stanford. One was an actress. One was a singer whose songs were in the top 10 on the radio. One was a sports star. Lots of different people, different fields. All people I knew well. And I asked each of them, some in person, some on the phone, in the midst of a conversation. They didn't know I was doing a study. But in the midst of the conversation, I asked them one question. Are you happy? And each one of them gave me one of two answers. There were only basically two answers that came from all of them. I would be happy if, or I will be happy when. And the blanks were different. So I would be happy if my husband worked less and came home early. The kids would clean up their room. I could lose the weight that I gained over the holiday season. Or I will be happy when kids grow up and move off to college. I get a better job. Whatever it may be. So the blanks were different, but the sentences were the same. Two answers. I will be happy when, or I would be happy if. And it hit me so deeply because I realized these people are whom everyone else in the world is running to be like. If you're in business, surely on some level, your highest goal is CEO of a billion-dollar company. If you're in academia, surely a tenured professor at Stanford is a goal. You're in Hollywood or Bollywood. Yeah, you want to be a famous star. You sing. You'd love to have songs in the top 10. All of these different fields, whatever field you're in, this is where people are running. Forsaking their health, forsaking their spiritual practice, forsaking their connection, to just keep running and running. That maybe I'll get to that place, and then I'll be happy. Then I'll be fulfilled. And here I had the absolute heights of each of these fields. And every one of them still had one thing between them and happiness. As long as happiness is an arm's length away, we'll never get there. And so the materialistic viewpoint, it's not that there's something wrong with matter. Matter is beautiful, right? I mean, sweater's beautiful, arm is beautiful. Divine image is beautiful, even the table is beautiful. Matter is beautiful, there's nothing wrong with matter. The problem with the materialistic viewpoint is through this matter I will find happiness. That's the only dilemma. Through this, through these clothes, through these jewels, through this money, through this house, through this car, I will find happiness. And not only does it waste our entire lives, but tragically it also prevents us from finding that happiness where it really exists, because you cannot be focused in two places simultaneously. And so either I'm looking to that material world, or I'm looking to the spiritual world. And so dedicating yourself to spirituality doesn't mean I won't have anything to do with matter. Doesn't mean I won't have clothes or jewels or money or a job or a house or a car. It means I'm not looking in those things for my happiness, for my peace, for my identity. I don't identify as that. Many of us identify materially, right? My body is in good shape. I'm beautiful, I'm handsome, I'm good. I have a well-paying job, I'm successful. Our whole identity is based on that. There's a great story of a brother and sister. And the brother became very, very wealthy. The sister was more simple. And the brother used to host these very fancy luncheons. And he would invite the who's who of society, meaning the wealthy people. And one day his sister, innocently, assuming it's my brother's house, of course I'm welcome, shows up at his luncheon. Well, the brother not only had become very wealthy, but also was very materialistic, was focused only on what you have, what you look like, what's your title. Okay. So he sees his sister and he's very upset and he tells her, you do not belong here. Go away from here. He sends her away. So the sister, first she's very sad, but she was wise. So she goes out, she gets herself a very high-paying job, she makes a lot of money, buys a lot of nice things. Lo and behold, she finds herself with an invitation to her brother's luncheon. So she arrives, and she mingles with everybody, and they sit down to lunch. And the servants bring out the beautiful food on the golden platters. And as her platter is before her, she takes off her earrings, she takes off her necklace, she takes off her bracelets, and she puts them on the table in front of the platter. So now the brother thinks, oh my God, what have I done? She's rich, but she's still crazy. I never should have invited her. She's getting undressed here in the middle of the luncheon, all of her jewels, what is she doing? So he says to her, sister, put back on your jewels. What are you doing? This is not the place to take them off. She says, oh, I'm feeding them. He thinks, oh God, she's really crazy. She's going to humiliate me in front of everybody. What do you mean you're feeding them? And she says, well, brother, I'm the same as I was before. Before I was not welcome. Now that I have jewels, I am welcome. Which means that it's my jewels you are looking to feed, not me. It's my jewels you invited to this party, not me. So I thought since they were the ones who were invited, not me, I should feed them. Clearly the lunch is for them, not for me. So I love that story because that's how so many of us move through the world. We identify ourselves and others based on what we have. And so spirituality says no. Spirituality says, sure, wear earrings if you want, no problem. But you're not your earrings. Your spirit. Your soul. And for me, sure, wear bracelets, wear earrings if I wanted to. But I'm not them. I'm not my jewelry. I'm not my clothes. I'm not my house, I'm not my car. Have one, sure, no problem. Bhagawan Krishna lived in Dwarka, a city made of gold. The presence of the gold didn't diminish his divinity. So it's not that the material world is itself the problem. The problem is our focus on, our attention to the material world as that which is the answer. That's the problem. And so live in the material world, no problem. But keep your focus, your awareness, your identification on spirit. And if we do that, then slowly, slowly we can actually bring it to the world. Because if I interact with you from a materialistic standpoint, and I look at you with a materialistic standpoint, I think, oh, his shawl, his pants, his this, his that, oh, either I like it or I don't like it, either way. What that does, because we're energetic beings, we feel it in each other. You know when someone's looking at you from a materialistic standpoint. Women especially, we feel it, but I think men probably do too. When you know when someone is looking at your body and not at your soul. You know someone's looking at your clothes, not your soul. You know it. So if somebody is looking at you like that, what does that do? It puts you back in the identification as body, as clothes. The minute someone looks at you and goes, what do? Suddenly you're in that body. You feel that. Maybe there's shyness, maybe there's shame, maybe there's pride. But either way, you've gone straight into the body based on how that person was interacting with you. Which means that as we move through the world, rooted in spirit, and committed to seeing others as spirit, we create the space for others then to live as spirit. We stop sending people into body mentality, and we create the space for them to live in soul truth. And that then is what brings about that ripple impact into the world.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. So he said, I'm a vegetarian, but my partner isn't. And they live together. And the conflict of when his partner is cooking meat and it's bothering him and what to do. So, first of all, this problem exists in things more than what we eat. But I'm going to come back to vegetarianism in any case because it's important. But this could be said about, for example, what type of TV we watch. My partner likes to watch, things that are very, very violent, or even things that I feel are bordering on pornography, and that upsets me. Or, it could expand into so many different ways. And here's the dilemma. The dilemma is that we really can't change another human being until and unless they want to be changed. But so many of us in our relationships hold change as an essential stipulation for us to keep loving them. But what we want is not just behavior modification. We actually want someone to change because deep inside them they believe that it's important. And so, for example, if your partner finally, after much fighting, agreed to not eat meat in the house, but nonetheless kept eating meat wherever he went outside, I imagine it would make your living situation a little bit easier, but it wouldn't make you feel better inside because he hasn't actually changed. And when it's something that's as deep as a choice that we make from a moral and spiritual perspective, so it's not just a matter of, how do you wash the dishes, how do you load the dishwasher, how do you make the bed, what type of music we listen to, but actually something that we are deciding from a deep core values-based place. We want the person to have the same values. And the problem is you cannot give someone an injection of values. You cannot get them to change theirs unless they realize something and automatically change. The best that you can get is behavior modification. But that's not really what we want. We really want them to change on the inside. And you can't do it. And so all you can do in all of these circumstances is live your truth. Live it, embody it. Don't try to shove it down people's throats. I know when I was a teenager and I first became a vegetarian, my friends used to call me a vegetarist because we would go out to eat and they would order some meat-based dish. And as they would eat it, I would say things like, "Ow, Mom, he's eating my foot. Ow, Mom, that's my arm. Ow, ow." And I became utterly impossible in their mind to go anywhere with. I was on sort of a 15-year-old with a soapbox mission. But despite the ardent commitment to my truth, I didn't convert even one person. Not one person gave up eating meat because I would moan and scream and cry when they were, eating a hamburger. They did give up inviting me to go out to dinner with them. But I didn't actually change anybody. And this is where you have to realize, okay, so that's not the right approach. How can I just live my truth in such a way that I become a magnet of truth? People are attracted to the truth as a magnet. And when you have found truth, live it, exude it. It will attract people. It may not change your partner. And in our relationships, certainly the ones that we choose, not the ones we're born into, but the ones we choose, we absolutely have a right in our own minds and hearts to decide what things we are prepared to live with, to compromise on, and what things we aren't. And that's individual. There's no right answer or wrong answer. But the only thing that doesn't work is to say, okay, I'll have this relationship as long as you change. Because those don't work, sadly. And so when we have this situation, you need to really ask yourself, am I prepared to be in a relationship with someone, not just who eats meat, but someone for whom all of the reasons not to eat meat. It's not like I'm on a diet and my partner isn't on a diet and keeps eating chocolate cake in front of me. Okay, might be annoying, might even border on obnoxious, but there isn't a value and ethic and truth in eating or not eating chocolate cake. He or she may be compassionate to me and refrain from eating it in front of me not to tempt me. But them eating it doesn't have to do with a value or moral core decision. Whereas vegetarianism does. And so when it's this type of situation, comes up also with issues with regard to alcoholism, drug addiction, I mean so many other choices in life, is a relationship with someone for whom all of the moral, ethical, environmental reasons to be a vegetarian not enough? Who actually can make a choice to engage in a behavior that is wreaking such misery upon our planet? Not just on the animal they're eating, but literally on the planet. I mean, animal agriculture, the livestock industry, is, by UN statistics, the single greatest contributor to climate change. So it's not about the individual cow or pig or chicken we're eating. We're talking about world hunger. We're talking about water shortages. We're talking about Amazon rainforest getting deforested to graze the cows who become hamburgers. So before you give up on him entirely, you may want to share this information. So this is then a choice that you have to make. But my suggestion would be, once you make the choice of either I'm in or I'm out, if you choose I'm in, don't keep trying to change him. Because it's not going to make him a vegetarian, and all it's going to do is make you lose the relationship. So if you decide, even if he's not going to change, I'm still in, then be in with an acceptance of the fact that he doesn't hold those moral values. Doesn't mean he's not lovable. I'm sure he must be very lovable. So he may have a lot of other beautiful, wonderful characteristics, and focus on those instead. But first make that conscious decision. And this is true again in all of our relationships. We get to choose what for me is non-negotiable. There isn't a right answer. Each of us gets to choose. But if we decide I'm in, then be all in. And stop trying to change your loved one. If they're engaging in a non-negotiable behavior, you have the freedom to walk out. But to stay in the relationship and keep trying unsuccessfully to change someone, A, doesn't usually work, and B, leads to usually nothing but misery. But you should keep living your truth. And who knows, if not today, if you decide I'm in anyway, maybe a few months down the line, maybe a year down the line, who knows? People sometimes come in when you stop pushing. When you can simply create the space for them to both be who they are, where they are, and also a space for them to make a new, different decision. But that's not because you're forcing it. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week, and I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.